I'm going to bring up Dina Suarez, Two-Spirit Detribalized Purupecha, and their focus of their heart, HEArt, is cultural storytelling and radical repurposing. So please give a round of applause for Dina Suarez.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming all. It's such an incredible honor to be here with so much talented, gifted, amazing humans in the Bay Area and just throughout. My name is Dina, and I am from the Bay Area. I grew up here in San Bruno, California, and my parents are from Michoacan, Mexico. It's such a beautiful tradition seeing like all of the stories and the memories that, have been traveling and migrating, up here and down here and just all over. It's just so blessed to be here and, being able to witness all of the gifts that you are all sharing with us tonight. So for me, what I did with the funds that I was able to receive was to host a series of workshops where I was able to collect things and repurpose a lot of materials. The materials, like I heard it earlier, like capitalism, just commercialism, there's just like so much stuff, and then where does it go when you're done with it, right? As a kid, I would always be collecting things and making things, right? And I was inspired as a linoleum print artist to be able to like look at things that have, lasted through time, right? Like the pyramids, right? That were hand engraved, and they're still standing there. And so I didn't like things that were, going to be just tossed away so easily, right? So things had to be really meaningful for me, right? I would always make my own dolls. I would make my own, things like my own journals and stuff like that, my own books, my own coloring books, just to reflect the person that I was. And so a lot of the art that I would see, I would think about how it was made, and like particularly in Mexico, I would see a lot of embossed metal work, right? Like, things like my earrings, right? Jewelry, things like that. And so I wanted to learn how to make that. And I would see that a lot of those things were also made out of cans, like Humex cans and, junk that was tossed out. And I thought, how dare somebody discard this, right? And so I would just take it apart and then start to recreate something out of it. So one of the things that I wanted to do was create workshops for other people to be able to get that out, right? To be able to express themselves through the materials that I brought. And, through the time I was able to, I was actually gifted some tools that were for stamping on leather. And I thought these would actually work to emboss on metal. And then one time my mom was in Mexico and she always brings me back beautiful things, like garments like this, right? Rebosos, beautiful clothing. But I asked her for a set of tools, and she literally like bartered with like an artisan there, and brought me back some tools from Mexico. And I was like, this is incredible. And what they ended up telling me was that like, you don't really need any of these tools to make this art. What you need is like an eraser and a pencil, manicure tools. And I'm like, what? And, and I started to find really random things like baker's tools, like to bake fondant. And those actually started to work really, really well. So it was taking things that were very practical, things that were, discarded, pens that no longer wrote anymore, like they had no more ink, perfect for embossing, right? So just being able to take all of that stuff, other people's trash, and then recreating it into something, fantastic. So the first workshop that I did was back in October. And we made little embossed hearts, right? So it's, similar to like the sacred hearts that you see. And those are, something that like I would remember often, when we would go to church, people would hang these little milagros, right? They would ask for a petition, right? Like, and they would, be like a broken foot or whatever, right? And they would hang that on the rebozo for the saint, or on their garments for the saint. And so, I would make those little things, but I started to make much more different things, right? Like candle holders and, I don't know, just I once made a skeleton, right, for Dia de los Muertos. There was actually 2 big skeletons, and they were able to move. So it was just, I would think, where do I get these ideas? I don't know. I sometimes even, dream about them, right? And I'm like, I can make it. And, and then I start just pounding away, and something ends up happening. The second workshop that I had was just recently on the 6th. And that day we made the cuetlazochil, which is the poinsettia flower, right? And so that flower is used for the solstice. It's known as the mortal flower, right? And so, so I like to use these imageries, from long time ago, or, images that, might have or were taken and replaced, like they were colonized, right? Like that flower was, renamed poinsettia. But then I bring back that name, the cuetlazochil, to remind people that, that flower is native here. It is, it resisted, colonialism up until now, right? Like they tried to erase it, but no, it's back, right? And and it's a flower that's also used for the solstice, right? And so, a couple of other things was that, like that, the way that I use and I represent myself through art, I try to use affirmations or dichos, right? Like sayings that help to motivate me. And a couple of the ones that I've used are la cultura cura, right? The culture, it cures you, right? Your culture will cure you. And sometimes like, something as easy as sana, it's like, that's gonna heal you, right? Every day I tell my foot, sana, right? And so, I try to take things, like imagine them and how they they're not, it's not a bad thing, right? It's like, it's a lesson, right? And so the other one is el arte sana al artesano, right? So art heals the artisan. And so the day, or actually, what was it? It was the week before I was going to do my first workshop, and I took a step back and broke my ankle. And I thought, oh, this is not good. It's the first time I've ever broken anything, right? And so, I didn't want to give up. I didn't want to not, complete, going to these workshops, teaching, sharing this, these materials with people, or even to postpone it. So I'm like, no, I got to keep going, and I thought, what would Frida do? And so it was literally right around Halloween time, and I figured I'm going to dress up. I put on my little, a unibrow. I put on some, flowers in my hair, some antlers. I put on 2 big old wings, and I became Frida Calovera. And I was stomping around and telling people, feet, why do I need you if I have wings to fly? You know? And so it's like, you know, always thinking that like even like tragic times, like, you know, terrible times, it's like art always like pulls me out of it, right? And I even heard it like earlier, like how many of y'all, you know, like hasn't like art healed you, right? Or helped you through something. And it's like that has definitely been me. And so I brought the artwork that I created, some hummingbirds because it's the solstice time. And it was so funny because I pulled up the carta that y'all shared, and it was actually the hummingbird for me. So I'm like, there are no accidents in the world. There's 2 hummingbirds out there. The Cuetlazochil is there. And then also an image of Coyoshauqui, which is the representation of the moon. And so like during this time is like we celebrate the solstice, right? And La Virgen de Guadalupe and, you know, the apparition that just, you know, or the apparition that happened like in 20 something, you know, but that was the birth of Huitzilopochtli, right? Which is the deity of war and the sun. And, but it's also the birth of the moon, Coyoshauqui. And so I have her represented there as well. There is no actual pyramid for, or like a temple for her, right? And so it's like you, in the maps that Cassandra was sharing, it's like you see all of the churches. There's a reason why there's all these churches, because there's a pyramid underneath every one, right? And so, you know, one of the things that happened in Mexico, right, with the apparition of the Virgen of Guadalupe, was that they demolished the temple of El Tepeyac, right, which is where, you know, that image said was to have appeared there. And so I rebuilt it and I put Coyoshauqui on it, right? So the way that I did it was, again, out of recycled like materials. There were like 2 little altars that I turned. And so it's like when you know, turn it, it actually looks like a pyramid. So I put Coyoshauqui on that pyramid. So it's supposed to be like 2 pyramids, which is the representation of El Templo Mayor, which is for Huitzilopochtli and Tlaloc. But when they're turned to the side, it has Coyoshauqui right on it. So I hope you enjoy it. And yeah, I also have tools if you're interested in looking at, you know, any of the tools that I have there. So thank you so much.